What's this? A video in which Lel talks for longer than 27 seconds? Okay, anyway. I animate a lot of characters. A lot of characters of which have, less than simplest designs, to say the least. And on a recent vote on my community tab, exactly 7 and 1/50 of you guys wanted to know, Lel, how on earth do you animate all these complicated character designs over and over and over again? Well, today we will be walking through 2 different character animations I did and the tips and tricks I used to animate their designs. 2 disclaimers before we begin though. Number 1, this is just how I do it. What works for me may not work for you. And number 2, I am not a professional animator, so take everything I say here with a grain of salt. First up, we're gonna be animating Kayden, one of my more simpler designs. And we are going to be animating shot 3 of my next animation, which is a sort of sequel animation to Find Your Flame, if you remember that one. The video itself is taking a while, so be very surprised if I manage to finish it this year. But hey, this way I don't give myself extra work trying to make this video. The movement here is relatively simple, it's just Kayden going like...
What?
Though, as you're watching this, you may be wondering, well, how are you editing your line art like that? Well, if you open up Clip Studio Paint and go to where you make a new layer, there should be an option next to it that will make a vector layer. Vector layers allow it so that you can edit or mesh each individual line stroke on a layer using the object selection tool. This is very useful when doing line art. Just make sure your object selection tool has vector on and that you turn on select by dragging. You can also change the transform modes by using the drop down menu. That's really the only tip I have as far as line art goes, but color is really where things get tricky, so we're mostly going to be covering that. Now that our line art animation is done, we're going to make a new animation folder and call it base color. I'm not actually sure if that's the official terminology for it, but that's just what we're going with. In this animation folder, we are only going to be coloring in the main colors in the design. In other words, we're coloring the parts of the design that you can easily fill in without having to use onion skin. In this instance, I'm only coloring in Kayden's hoodie, eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Yep, yeah, that's seriously how I'm gonna word this sentence. You'll notice that I'm also coloring in the darker pink around Kayden's ears and the darker hue in his pupils. You'll see more on why I'm doing this later, but basically I'm just doing this because these parts of his design are pretty easy to eyeball from frame to frame. And sometimes, like again you'll see later in this video, I'll do a lot more eyeballing than this on my base color folder. Also, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but make sure you're coloring your keyframes first. Alright, now that we've finished coloring the main colors, and ignore how cursed it looks, we're going to make another animation folder, clip it to the layer below, and call it Details. In this folder, as the name implies, we will be animating the rest of the details in the design, such as markings and eye shine. But now, we can use onion skin. And Remelo Ding Dong, there you go. That's it for this animation, but there's still another thing I want to cover, so we're moving on. Next up, we're gonna be animating Keifer. Woohoo! Yeah, we love that guy. My notes here just say make a joke about keyframes. So, hey guys, look, keyframes. Although Keifer's design is a lot more detailed than Kayden's, I still use the same exact method of the separate animation folders. The only difference here is that I used 2 animation folders instead of 1 for the details. And it's probably wise to keep the amount of animation folders to a minimum. I'd say about 2 or 3 would do the job pretty well as far as color goes, just because it'll take up more space if you try using more. And that way it won't be so overwhelming if you decide to shade the animation later. Right now we're working on shot 7 of the same animation where Keifer just turns around while lip syncing, "I'll be fine." And the reason I chose to include this shot is because, lol, Keifer's wearing a t-shirt! A graphic t-shirt! And yeah, I have a method for animating t-shirts with graphics on them, but before I cover that, bonus tips! Bonus tip 1. Use reference videos when animating. This will help you capture certain movements and poses you'll want for your animation. I recorded myself to get the poses for this shot, but I'm not going to show you that video. Bonus tip 2. Use a separate animation folder for your lip syncing. I mean, seriously, how do you think I was able to animate Crutch? I even used the same technique when animating Eve's speak in this rough animation for Fort Forest. Psst, go support Fort Forest. Look at the description. Bonus tip 3. If there's a part of the design that you can easily eyeball without using onion skin or a separate folder, then do that every chance you get. Alright, now we can move on to t-shirts. So again, we're going to be animating the t-shirts design on a separate animation folder. We'll start by drawing what the graphic looks like when viewed from the front. In Keifer's instance, it's a golfing logo because Pro loves his golf. Alright, now that that's done, we're gonna duplicate the frame a couple of times. From here, we just move and mesh the logo to where it needs to be for each frame. Also, be sure to erase the parts that go outside of the lines or are covered up by other parts of the animation. I use the same technique whenever I'm animating chainmail or embroidery. And yeah, that's basically all the tips I have. Bye.